All right, welcome to day 4 of reading the Quran. Just to answer some of the questions that people clarified for me in the previous video regarding which sections of the Torah are included, it kind of doesn't specify. And my takeaway from that is just whenever it's referenced, that's like the part of the Torah that is true. Obviously, like it's gotten corrupted over time, is what Islam believes. And another question that I was asking was, is Allah good? And people say that he's the most merciful. And I was mainly going over this scenario of someone who's a really good person but hasn't heard about Islam or hasn't been able to dive into it, and then they'll die being a good person but not Muslim. And basically Allah will assess their circumstances and then decide himself based off of that. However, one thing I didn't really understand is what that line is. Like, how much exposure to Islam do they need to have in order to go to heaven or hell if they die a good person? So that was the question I'm still left unanswered, and I don't think it specifies. And maybe just some food for thought. I had an idea. I think the goal of Muslims is to maximize the amount of people that go to Jannah as possible. And if that really is what Muslims are striving to do, then my idea was, why do we keep spreading Islam? Because when we expose somebody to Islam, then there's a chance that they won't believe. However, you've given them signs. So if that's the case, then they have all this curse on them, which he specifies. And he's very clear that people who have seen the signs yet still don't believe, they will go to hell, even if they're a good person. So what if we encourage being a good person, encourage those morals? There's non-religious reasons to do based off of that. And then they'll die not knowing of Islam, and they would go to Jannah pretty much guaranteed. So I'm not sure why that hasn't been done. Maybe you guys could answer that. I was thinking about it. Imagine I told my mom about Islam, because my mom's a great person. However, if I told her about it, I gave her the book. I was like, hey, you can read this maybe. There's a 99% chance that she's not going to read it and look into it. She has too much, she's too busy for that. But if I did that, then by these conditions, I'd be pretty much sending her to hell when, because she's not exposed to it she would go to Jannah normally. So maybe somebody could give me some answers to that. But I'm going to go ahead and read. I'm on chapter 4, the women, and I'll let you know when I get done. All right, all done with chapter 4. And bit of a short summary is it's a lot of laws and still a lot of saying those who don't believe will go to hell. That is just sprinkled in there like normal. But one of the things I find kind of cool and interesting about it is this is very just written down for the lawmakers. So I'm sure whatever Sharia law is, this is just directly going in straight to the law books. For example, in section 2 it says Allah thus directs you as regards your child's inheritance, to the male a portion equal to that of 2 females, if only daughters, 2 or more, their share is 2/3 of the inheritance, if only 1, her share is half. Stuff like this is just all throughout this chapter, just all the certain criteria of it. So I think that's kind of interesting. And then in section 3, it's going over some punishment for women's behavior. This one seems pretty cruel. If any of your women are guilty of lewdness, take the evidence of 4 reliable witnesses from amongst you against them, and if they testify, confine them to houses until death do claim them, or Allah ordain for them some other way. So I'm not really sure what that other way is, but the first part of it, if they just have to be under house arrest until they die, that seems like a pretty cruel punishment. And I'm wondering if it's the same for the men. If men are guilty of acts of lewdness, is it the same punishment towards that? Maybe something I should look up. But right below it in section in verse 16 it says, if 2 men among you are guilty of lewdness, punish them both. If they repent and amend, leave them alone, for Allah is all-forturning and most merciful. So again, it's with this crime, does Allah treat the men and the women differently? Or are they would they have the same punishment against them? Because it seems with the men, they can get off a bit easier than the women can. But I might be interpreting that wrong. And obviously, this is my first time, so I'm not too sure all the specifics and if it's mentioned later. And in verse 19, I think it's a pretty good message saying, "O ye believe, ye are forbidden to inherit women against their will, nor should ye treat them with harshness, that ye may take away of the dower ye have given them, except where they have been guilty of open lewdness. On the contrary, live with the footage of kindness and equity. If ye take a dislike to them, that may be that ye dislike a thing, and Allah brings about through it a deal of good. So just kind of like protecting women, like with that verse saying that like they can't be inherited through their will, I think is a positive thing. And then in section 4, I know that people like to criticize Islam for this, but I kind of want to more just think about it from like a scientific perspective. So it's saying who the men have like permission to marry, or like who like they can marry, with it like being halal, and it specifies that like you can still marry your first cousins, but I feel like this isn't really a sign of evidence of Allah being really all-knowing, because we know now from science that genetic disorders are like more than double to happen between first cousins, and still more than average for second cousins. I feel like I would have been a lot more impressed if Allah specified don't marry your first or second cousins, third cousins is okay, because at the third cousin point there's very different genetic diversity, as in the family tree it's like logarithmic as like the genetic diversity. So like if you go like one step out more, it's extraordinarily like less. But I feel like that was a missed opportunity from Allah there, and I felt like if he was all-knowing, he would have included to say that. Maybe I interpreted that wrong, but let me know if I missed something. And then in verse 47, it's kind of addressing people of the book, saying, "Oh yeah, people of the book, believe in what we have revealed, confirming what was already with you, before we change the face of fame of some of you beyond all recognition, and turn them hindwards, or curse them as we curse the Sabbath breakers, for the decision of Allah must be carried out." Still Allah talking about his curse. I'm not really sure like what the Sabbath is. I think it's like common knowledge like between like monotheistic religions, but I'm not too researched into that. I might look it up. And let's see. It also mentioned war in this chapter, which I felt like was a bit weird, since like this is all about like the woman, like that's what the title of it is. But in section 13, it's saying, "Never should a believer kill a believer, but if so happens by mistake, if one kills a believer, it is compensation to the deceased family," and so on. And then right below in section 13, verse 93, it says, "If a man kills a believer intentionally, his recompense is hell to abide them forever, and the wrath and the curse of Allah are upon him, and a dreadful penalty is prepared for him." But I bet there's like still like circumstances that will apply to that. Like for example, like if like a believer like was going to do like a terrible thing, and like somebody killed him for the greater good, I'm sure Allah like has like conditions there. I mean, obviously like I'm not advocating for that at all, but I feel like there's been circumstances where it doesn't really necessarily follow that rule, but I'm not too sure. It also mentions in section 18 what I've heard to be like the biggest sin in Islam, which is to follow other gods. It says, "Allah forgiveth not the sin of joining other gods with him, but he forgiveth whom he pleaseth other sins than this one. One who joins other gods with Allah hath strayed far, far from the right." So I bet this is going to be like more of like a recurring theme throughout the book, but it really just focuses like on one God. And like a few pages later, it was actually talking about like Jesus and the Holy Trinity. It first said in verse 157, "We killed Jesus Christ," or they say, "We killed Jesus Christ, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah, but they killed him not, nor crucified him, but so made it to appear to them, and those who differ therein are full of doubts, with no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow, for surety they killed him not." So definitely it's saying there that Jesus did not die on that cross that day, and I don't really know how they think that he died. I don't know where the Christians went wrong from this point of view, where Christians went wrong in interpreting that he did die. Was there good enough evidence for that, since that's like the foundation of Christianity? Where did it go wrong? I don't know. And in verse 171, it says that Jesus was also just a messenger, and quote unquote, "Say not Trinity, desist, it will be better for you. For Allah is one God, glory to him, above having his Son, to him belong all things in heavens and on earth, and enough is Allah as a disposer of affairs." And that's all the notes I took for this chapter. No, I mostly took notes and had questions like while I was going over the summary, but let me know if I missed anything. But one question I've been having is, why is the Quran not in the order that Allah revealed it? Since Islam is all about like the preservation of this text, I feel like it'd be very important to like keep it in the same order. And I've kind of been upset that it's been out of order, because it's saying, oh, if you haven't seen these signs and don't believe, it's like, you haven't shown me the signs yet, because like the book isn't ordered the right, or the way that Allah revealed it. So I heard that it was Muhammad's decision to do that, but was he going against Allah's will doing that? I'm not really too sure. And like, what's like the documentation for like him making the decision to actually change the order of it? That's my last question. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.